question, because we don't necessarily want to lean in the direction of it being a student, because we have other people who use this campus as well.
All right, and we are still following that story. We've got the full story coming up in our news at 7:30 with Natalia Hall. Meanwhile, an attempted armed robbery ending in a police chase and the arrest of 3 men, all in their 20s. Police Commissioner Clayton Fernando, who was on the scene, revealed that the trio entered a superwash on West Carmichael Road and attempted to rob the business. However, he says the men were frightened and fled in a black Japanese vehicle.
The information came in through control room, and it was relayed to officers out there on patrol. They spotted the vehicle traveling at a high rate of speed east on Carmichael Road. There was a chase. Other vehicles that were in the area came involved in the chase. They came together, and there was a lot of in and out through side corners off Carmichael Road, and eventually ended up right in this area. They got the vehicle to a stop.
Commissioner Fernando says the men got away with nothing and no one was hurt. The police commissioner says the 2 men were arrested at the end of the chase, while the third tried escaping by running into a nearby home.
The door was open, and he just ran into the home. Officers was able to give chase and also arrested that individual. On search of the vehicle, a loaded pistol was found just on the floor in the rear, at the rear passenger seat. So as you can see now, the officers are conducting an investigation here. Also, a team is at that business establishment on the Carmichael Road side.
And now to the woman convicted in the stabbing death of her former friend, who has been denied a last chance appeal to the country's final court. In 2012, Dervanique Edwards was sentenced to 28 years in prison for the murder of 19-year-old Brianna Mackey. With deductions for time spent on remand, her sentence was reduced to 25 years and 2 months. Her appeals against conviction and sentence were rejected by the Court of Appeal in 2022, and now the Privy Council has also denied her bid for a final appeal, saying that no miscarriage of justice occurred in the case. Mackey was walking along Key West Street when she was cut off by a car. Edwards and 4 other young women emerged from the vehicle and ganged Mackey in a row over a broken cell phone on January 25th in 2018. Edwards did not inflict the fatal stab wounds, but she and others kicked and pelted Mackey with rocks and stones during the fatal assault. And over a 24-hour period, police officers executing a number of stops and searches, 86 vehicles and 23 drivers were cited for traffic infractions. During that time, police also arresting 2 suspects for outstanding warrants. Officers also visited 45 homes and 83 businesses where they shared safety tips with merchants and homeowners. All right, we've got a whole lot more to get to, but for now, it's time for your first look at temperatures across the islands. And meteorologist Greg Thompson is standing by in the Weather Center. 79 tonight, Greg.
Yeah, warm.
And we're expected to get down a little bit lower, right?
Yeah, we're going to get probably to the low 70s. We woke up to about 72 this morning, so with the winds out there, it's going to keep it a little warmer tonight, so not as cool.
All right.
79, as you mentioned, outside our studios right now in the warm and breezy conditions. The winds out of the south, and that is bringing the warm temperature at 15 miles per hour, and it feels like temperature hanging out in the upper 70s. Temperatures around the islands tonight right now, very warm, 79 in Freeport, as well as in Marshall, Barbacoa, and in Alistown, Bimini, 80 in Great Harbour Cay, Nicholstown, Andros, 81. Over in Governor's Harbour, you guys are 78, and as we saw earlier, 79 here in the capital. Central Bahamas, 79s in Kemps Bay, Georgetown, 78 in Arthurstown, Cat Island, Coburn Town, San Salvador, 77. Deadman's Key, you guys are 80. Southeast Bahamas, 80 in Duncan Town, Ragged Island. We pick up more 79s in Colonel Hill, Crooked Island, Delectable Bay, Abrahams Bay, and in Matthew Town in Agua. Our good neighbors to the southeast, Turks and Caicos Islands, you are checking in at 77. Satellite view, ridge of high pressure that's been across us now sliding towards the east, and that still kept us kind of warm today, but the tight pressure gradient kept us a little breezy, but those winds expected to fall off. There's a frontal boundary that's not really on the map right now, but these are some high clouds moving out of the Gulf of Mexico that should filter some sunshine tomorrow. Front is expected to get near by Sunday. That's your first look at weather. Stick with us. Your extended forecast is still to come.
Thanks, Greg. And still to come on our news, a standoff between vendors and agricultural officials on Arawak Cay today. We'll tell you why. But first, a local group is calling on King Charles and the royal family to pay reparations. And later, clearing up misconceptions about the Fishing Hole Road Causeway. That's coming up when our news returns.
Since there were
Talks about reparations have been growing throughout the region in recent years, and they've only picked up steam since last year's royal visit and the passing of Queen Elizabeth II last September. And now the Bahamas National Reparations Committee is calling on His Majesty King Charles III to act. Marlena Leonard has the story.
This segment of the news is brought to you by H.G. Christie. List your home in Grand Bahama with H.G. Christie. Visit our new office in the Port Lacaya Marketplace. H.G. Christie, celebrating over 100 years of service.
In a letter released this morning, the Bahamas National Reparations Committee responds to the King's message to our Governor General, Sir C.A. Smith. His Majesty's message was delivered by Prince Edward, Earl of Wessex and Forfar last Friday, and speaks of the King's particular interest in and affection for the Bahamas, as well as our resilience and persistence in the fight against climate change. But the BRNC says these words are not enough. They go on to compare the devastation of storms, winds, and rains to, quote, the reigns of tyranny over our ancestors. The group also references the recent apology of Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte for the Netherlands' role in the transatlantic slave trade, suggesting His Majesty should follow suit. They go a step further and, quote, follow your words with actions. The BRNC points to the 10-point plan of the Caribbean Reparations Commission as a reference point. The 10 points include a full formal apology, repatriations, Indigenous peoples development programs, cultural institutions, addressing the public health crisis, illiteracy eradication, African knowledge programs, psychological rehabilitation, a technology transfer, and debt cancellation. And if not that, the BRNC calls the possibilities endless, pointing to the example of the Trevelyan's, a British aristocratic family who publicly apologized to the people of Grenada and proceeded to donate 100,000 British pounds to the University of the West Indies as reparations. While King Charles has acknowledged the atrocity of slavery and spoken of sorrow over events of the past, he has never officially offered a formal apology. The Bahamas National Reparations Committee closes with the line, as we look toward the 50th anniversary of our nation's independence, we do so as one nation with the expectation of reparations as our legacy and our future. Reporting for Our News, I'm Marlena Leonard.
Thanks, Marlena. Well, the Organization for Responsible Governance Executive Director Matt Aubrey says moving forward, anti-corruption laws need to be priority items. He says too often these bills are placed on the back burner.
What we see as a country is that we need to make sure that these are valued. Too often these don't become the ones that are put as priority. Other things that relate to blacklists and key crisis, they come up and obviously they take precedence, but we have to put some long-term strategy in place that these things will be identified, moved forward. So something like procurement, we make sure that there's a transparent procurement process in place and one that people can trust and take advantage of.
The former Minnis administration campaigned on bringing anti-corruption laws, but it didn't happen before they left office. In its blueprint for change, the Davis administration pledging to also bring anti-corruption legislation within its first 100 days in office, but that too has not happened. The Organization for Responsible Governance holding a symposium today speaking to the issue.
The Organization for Responsible Governance and the Ministry of Finance and the U.S. Embassy and a number of different not-for-profits and private sector groups are all coming together today to really talk about how do we recognize what we're already doing in this space to promote integrity over corruption here in the Bahamas, and how do we leverage those efforts together to not only strengthen the potential impact, but more importantly build our reputation in this area.
Officials from the Ministry of Agriculture and vendors at Arawak Cay in a standoff this afternoon as officials attempted to change the locks on one of the stalls. The matter, according to the association president, is one that's been ongoing for years. Megan Shepherd has the details.
The doors to Casa del Mar remain locked and closed for business. This after an initial court ruling just days ago, and now interference from Ministry of Agriculture officials. Diane Burrows says she leases the land from the leasing authority, but she built the building herself back in 1999. She recently had someone serve as property manager who then rented out her building.
So what's happening today, I heard that they are coming to change my locks on my door where I just changed on the 1st.
Attorney for the Arawak Cay Association and Diane Burrows, Floyd Watkins, adamant the ministry is not following the proper legal channels.
Diane went to court and the magistrate obviously awarded her possession of the place.
Meantime, president of the Arawak Cay Association, Rodney Russell, says the issue is bigger than this one stall. He says for decades he's been unable to come to a resolution with successive governments and agriculture ministers.
One government says Bahamians are lazy. One government says that, oh, we don't want to pay our bill. One government is saying Bahamians need to be more entrepreneurial. Wow, Arawak Cay is a prime example that any Bahamian throughout the Bahamas go and create any activities where there's an economic activities or impediment comes.
Now officials from the Ministry of Agriculture arrived at the property shortly after 2 p.m. Association members standing in solidarity with Burrows, refusing to let them change the locks. That's when police officers stepped in to mediate the situation, making officials aware that it is a civil situation and they could not step in to assist. However, both parties decided to speak privately at the Arawak Cay police station. Burrows, her attorney, and the association president say they simply want the ministry to come to the table. Agricultural officials refused to give our news team a comment. Reporting for Our News, I'm Megan Shepherd.
And now to our weekly Work in Progress segment. Tonight, the focus, Fishing Hole Road Causeway in Grand Bahama. Now, for the past several months, there have been a number of issues there which appear to be reasons for several car accidents. Engineer for the Family Islands in the Ministry of Works is clearing up what he calls misconceptions relating to the roadway. Natalia Hall reports.
Following months of complaints and accidents, the Ministry of Works is now stepping in to make the necessary repairs to the Fishing Hole Road Causeway. On Monday, work will begin. Engineer for the Family Islands, David Cox, revealing that after Hurricane Dorian, the asphalt on the causeway was washed off. The entire causeway was then repaved with concrete. As he says, it's more resilient, but things took an unfortunate turn.
The material that was used was lime rock material instead of granite. So lime rock is what is traditionally used in concrete and in asphalt in Freeport. In Nassau, we don't pave roads in lime rock. We pave them we use in granite material.
But the question has been asked, why did it take so long for the Ministry of Works to take action on the major thoroughfare?
None of the contractors in Freeport have granite material. This has to be imported.
Now, recently, the causeway was reopened by Chief Counselor for the West Grand Bahama District, George Jimmy Smith, following a car accident on the temporary service road.
It's difficult to say whether that was a wise decision. This was not reopened with the Ministry of Works approval. However, The service road was in a bad condition, and we are aware of the accident that took place earlier this week.
And because of this recent move by the chief counselor, he says the Ministry of Works rethought their plans, and the service road will now be repaired first before the causeway. He also had this message for motorists as construction is set to begin.
Because we all know the surface is slippery and it's not, up to standard right now. So we do advise motorists to take their time.
Reporting for Work in Progress for Our News, I'm Natalia Hall.
When our news comes back from the break, we turn our spotlight to stories making headlines across the world as 79 police officers are held hostage in Colombia. Plus, how an international public policy institute is helping to fight human sex trafficking and violence against women. And later, the inaugural Nassau Paradise Island Wine and Food Festival is set to kick off in a few weeks. We get a preview. This is our news. Welcome back. We turn our attention now to stories making headlines across the world. Friday saw the funeral for the first of nearly 60 victims of Greece's worst rail disaster this week. This as families began receiving the remains of their loved ones following what's been described as a harrowing identification process. Recovery teams spent a third day scouring the wreckage north of Athens, where a passenger train slammed into a freight carrier just before midnight Tuesday. Government blamed human error, and a railway official has been charged with manslaughter. A large fire at a fuel storage depot in Indonesia's capital Friday, killing at least 17 people and injuring dozens of others. Authorities say the incident forcing the evacuation of thousands of nearby residents after spreading to their neighborhood. According to fire officials, at least 260 firefighters and 52 fire engines were struggling to contain the blaze. A preliminary investigation showed the fire broke out when a pipeline erupted during heavy rain. Italian prosecutors closed a COVID-19 investigation that accuses officials, including a former premier and a regional governor, of wrongdoing for failing to extend a lockdown zone in the early days of the pandemic. The case now goes to a magistrate to decide whether to indict more than a dozen suspects identified by prosecutors, including then Premier Giuseppe Conte. Italy has recorded more than 188,000 COVID-19 deaths. A police officer has died and 79 others taken hostage during protests in a southern Colombia province. Police say violence erupted on Thursday after residents blockaded the compound of oil exploration company Emerald Energy. They were demanding its help to repair and build new roads in the area. A civilian was also killed and 9 workers captured alongside the police officers. Colombian President Gustavo Petro says he hoped they would be unilaterally released before any escalation of violence and asked for medical help from the Red Cross. And finally, a Pennsylvania woman who went missing more than 30 years ago, has been found living in a nursing home in Puerto Rico. Authorities say a DNA test has confirmed her identity as Patricia Copta. U.S. officials said at a news conference this week that she left behind a husband and siblings and meandered through northern Puerto Rico for a while before she was taken as a person in need to the adult care home in 1999. They say Copta, once known as a street preacher in her hometown, initially kept her past secret while in Puerto Rico, but began to divulge details as she suffered progressively from dementia. They say by last year, a social worker at the home had enough information to alert authorities back home about the now 83-year-old woman who had been declared legally dead. Well, the International Black Women's Public Policy Institute here at home hosting their 14th annual Board of Directors retreat at the Pelican Bay Resort in Grand Bahama today. The theme, IBWPPI, the destination, now what? The organization that's headquartered in Washington, D.C. focuses on health and wellness, education, economic security, as well as the eradication of human sex trafficking and violence against women. Among the speakers today was Minister for Grand Bahama, Ginger Moxie, who says it's encouraging for Grand Bahama to be able to host the retreat.
I'm hoping that they see other opportunities on Grand Bahama Island and perhaps want to even invest here. And so we've shared also with them our new unit in the ministry that's called COLAB, Partnerships for Development. And we focus on partnering with NGOs to make things happen for the island. And so we looked at how we're going to partner to deal with some of the issues that affect women and girls.
Also addressing the group was United States Embassy Chargé d'Affaires, Usha Pitts.
My lesson, I think my lesson was mostly for black girls who are interested in policy and might want to have a career in international relations or public policy. And it was just about that, you know, you're going to have to put up with a lot of adversity as you go on, but it's important to just kind of ignore that and focus on your own excellence, on doing well yourself. Because if you focus on that and don't get distracted by all the other nonsense out there, then you really will move up in the hierarchy.
Still to come in our news, today in history, find out interesting facts about the day that was March 3rd, 1958, when the Royal Victoria Hotel was bombed with dynamite. Plus, Greg is back with your extended weather forecast. And then in our news at 7:30, school officials speak out after a shooting threat at a Grand Bahama school. That's coming up when our news returns. Welcome back to our news. It's time now to turn our spotlight on events that shaped the day that was March 3rd, including the Battle of Nassau. On this day in Bahamian history in 1776 was the Battle of Nassau. The two-day fight occurred during the American War of Independence and was the first naval assault of what would later become the United States Marines and the U.S. Navy. The raiding party was led by Commodore Isaac Hopkins, and the city of Nassau militia was led by Governor Montford Brown. The objective was to capture gunpowder and arms that had been sent from the colony of Virginia to Nassau by Governor Lord Dunmore. Then in 1958, the Royal Victoria Hotel located on Shirley Street was bombed with dynamite. Reports said terrorists threw several sticks of dynamite from a moving car at about midnight, blowing a huge hole in the dining room. No one was injured. Police blamed the attacks on racial and political agitators and said the terrorists aimed the bombs at 3 gas tanks in the hotel kitchen. A reward of £8,000 sterling was offered for information leading to the arrest and conviction of the terrorists. And finally, on this day in 1982, the Bahamas joined the Organization of American States as its 31st member. All right, it's an event that's expected to bring the best in culinary talent to our shores. It's the Nassau Paradise Island Wine and Food Festival at the Atlantis Resort. Jamila Mizik tells us what event goers can expect this year.
The inaugural Nassau Paradise Island Wine and Food Festival takes place at the Atlantis Resort from March 15th through 19th. Atlantis Vice President of On-Island Marketing Events Jason Spencer says it is expected to be the largest wine and food festival on the island.
We have over 20 events throughout the entire resort and throughout Nassau, and as well as we are bringing in some of the top celebrity chefs from across the world, including Alex Garnaschelli, Duff Goldman, Andrew Zimmern, Aaron Sanchez, and more.
He says guests will have a chance to sample food from some of the best Bahamian chefs, and it is expected to be a family-friendly event for all.
We also have an event called Jerk Jam, which is featuring jerk seasoning and each restaurant's take on that. So it's going to be an incredibly tasting event, and we actually have Wyclef Jean coming to perform, and he's going to close out that event. So that's another event that we're looking forward to.
He says the goal is to feature the Bahamas as a world-class culinary destination.
We have some amazing chef talent here on property and throughout the island, and we want the world to know that. So we are excited to produce an event of this magnitude, to invite people from across the world down, including celebrity chefs, big-name talent, and culinary experts and media from across the globe to come get a taste of the Bahamas.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Jamila Mizik.
All right, thanks so much for that, Jamila. And to watch that story again, or for any of today's top stories, you can visit ournews.bs. That's going to do it for us in News at 7. Joining us now is Italia Hall with the latest headlines. Italia, it's 20 years later for Our News.
Right. Congrats to Our News. And Ken, you've been a part of the growth and development of this news team over the years. How does it feel?
You know, it really does put you in introspection, and just really happy to be able to be a part of, I believe, what is the best team in the country.
I agree. All right. The best team in the country.
Listen, I mean, we're expecting cake, right?
Yeah.
I just need to make sure that I get some.
Right.
I'll be in master control, but I just need to make sure I get some of that cake, because I think I saw a box coming in earlier
Yeah, I
tonight.
saw it too. So viewers, stay tuned for what's to come. Thanks so much, Ken. While we are still following a school threat over in Grand Bahama, and it's 20 years later for Our News. A shooting threat at the Bishop Michael Eldon School on Grand Bahama. A threat officials say they're not taking lightly, and the Auditor General's office is facing staffing challenges. We'll tell you what the chief says his office needs. Plus, should churches be audited by the government? The president of the Bahamas Christian Council says no. And later, we are celebrating 20 years of making news on Channel 12. We have a few very special guests in studio to kick off our anniversary. Our news live at 7:30 starts in a moment.
With over
Welcome to our news and thank you for joining us. I'm Natalia Hall. A frightening incident taking place at the Bishop Michael Eldon School in Grand Bahama after a note was found threatening gun violence. The threat prompting school officials to ramp up security as students who showed up today were greeted by police officers.
Of course, we were concerned and we wanted to make sure that we were following all of the necessary protocols, all of the necessary strategies available to us to make sure that it doesn't happen in the future.
Police were out in full force on the Bishop Michael Eldon School campus on Friday morning, searching the bags of every student. It came after a threat that was found in a high school boys' bathroom that said, "We're going to shoot up the school on March 3rd. This morning, parents could be seen on the campus trying to find out what was happening, as some told us they are concerned about their kids' safety. Principal of the institution, Cheryl Wood, explaining that the threat was brought to the attention of school officials by a senior student. Shortly after the discovery, the school sent out a very detailed email to parents explaining the situation. Wood says the school does not take the threat lightly, and that is why police were called in.
We did bag checks this morning. The police came in and they spoke to the students to speak about the gravity of the situation and how you really should not be skylarking, just doing something because you think it's a huge joke.
And as for who may be responsible for the threat,
I'm not sure who was responsible for it, but it was definitely written by some person. And I want to also, and I'm glad you asked that question, because we don't necessarily want to lean in the direction of it being a student, because we have other people who use this campus as well.
the principal says new strategies will be put in place with the help of police to safeguard the school. She also had this message for students who may be troubled.
Administrators, guidance teams, teachers, we are all still poised to listen to you if you have a concern, whether it's a concern that emanates from the home, whether it's a concern that emanates from being around another student. We want you to know that listening ears are still here. Our schools and our Anglican schools have chaplains, and the chaplains are very active.
A murder suspect who was featured on a wanted poster is now in custody. Jadder Mice Evans is behind bars charged with the February 5th murder of Desmond Smith at Gambia Village. Smith, who was also known as Strap, was fatally shot outside a bar in the area. Evans was not required to enter a plea to the murder charge when he appeared before Assistant Chief Magistrate Soboswola Swain. Bail was denied and Evans is next due in court in May. While police are searching for 4 men they believe are responsible for 2 separate armed robberies on Thursday. Shortly before 9 p.m., a man was parked at a business on Farrington Road when he was approached by 2 men dressed in black and carrying guns. They robbed the man of his black Kia Soul and sped off heading north on Eden Street. The second incident happening shortly before midnight in the East Street area. The victim was approached by 2 men with guns who robbed him of his 2007 Nissan Note. The suspects escaped. Now investigations into both matters are continuing. Year after year, the Office of the Auditor General goes through the spending of every government entity with a fine-tooth comb. But as the Auditor General tells our Bertie McDermott in this next report, his office remains understaffed.
Auditor General Terence Bastian says his office needs more manpower and upgraded technology, and it's an issue that has persisted for years. The Auditor General is tasked with auditing all government ministries and departments.
The basic need really is resources, and that resources is personnel, bodies, persons, and increase technology so that we can be more efficient and effective and time in reducing our report.
Bastian says the goal is for the increase to also come with trained staffers. He says ideally each government agency would need 2 auditors for the office to function properly.
Currently, we have, the government have a total of 76 ministries and departments that need to be audited. And we have, say, approximately 40 auditors. So think about that shortage right there.
The Auditor General says the government understands and is working to bring up the employee complement, adding that they're doing the best they can with what they have.
Additional bodies will give us more timeliness, more efficiency, but also adding to that is to improve our technical capacity, the information system, being able to have systems that will also help us to do things more time to analyze information speedily and faster. So
Reporting for Our News, I'm Berthany McDermott.
All right, thanks, Berthany. Should churches be audited by government? That's the question the Bahamas Christian Council President Delton Fernandez feels has a clear answer. Marlena Leonard has the story.
Bahamas Christian Council President Delton Fernandez is pushing back against churches across the country being audited by the government. This week, government officials visited several churches throughout the country.
Churches are being contacted unaware of the Christian Council. I found out today at our annual meeting that churches have had site visits. They've been kind of costed and told that they need to do certain things. We will press back forcefully.
Fernandez tells us these kinds of audits also took place under the previous Minnis administration, but he did not expect them under the Davis administration. He explains why.
It was the same administration that told us that this was something that they thought was out of whack for the previous administration, and it is really disheartening that it's taking place without consultation. I mean, I understand they're going around the council and meeting with churches, but if you check what we put in legislation, the council is the body they ought to have contacted, and we need to get it done, else we'll have to figure out ways to push back on this.
The bishop feels there should be a line when it comes to tithes and other church donations, which he sees as an act of charity.
The Bible says, let not your alms be made known to man. What's going to happen is we've decided to put a committee with this. We will contact all of the churches that have been contacted by the state, find out what has been requested of them. I need members to know that the state is intruding on the church and the separation is being eroded, and they want your financial information. Church won't stand for that.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Marlena Leonard.
Mostly clear skies outside the Our News studios tonight as we celebrate 20 years in the news business. Meteorologist Greg Thompson joins us live from the Weather Center now with a look at our current conditions.
Yeah, thanks, Natalia. We are closing out, beginning the week early with warm temperatures, closing it out with another warm night, 78 degrees, warm and breezy. Winds out of the southeast at 13 miles per hour and becoming more southerly. Feels like temperature is hanging out at 78. Ridge of high pressure process now shifting towards the east. That's keeping us a little warm earlier this evening, but we do have some high clouds, so we do not expect temperatures to fall off tonight, but a front is expected to get near sometime by Saturday into Sunday time frame. That's your quick check on weather. Stick with us. A look at your extended forecast is still coming.
Still to come on Our News, local businesses are empowering women. Women's Day. We'll tell you how you can grab a spot. Plus, the countdown continues for the 50th Carifta Games, hosted right here in the Bahamas. And later, we celebrate Our News and 20 years in the news business. We tell our story when Our News continues. To celebrate International Women's Day in style, Bahamian Bistro and Her Appeal partner for their second annual International Women's Day mixer called Motivational Mixer. But it's not just any mixer. Bahamian Bistro owner Kutel Nemore says the event will also feature 4 guest speakers under the theme Digital Innovation and Technology for Gender Equality and a pop-up shop.
This year we decided to expand it by offering a pop-up with vendors where free of charge Bahamian-owned entrepreneurs can come out and display their products or their business. Especially this is a good chance for startup businesses to have an opportunity to network.
We're going to have dynamic speakers, we're going to have an array of tasty food, signature cocktails, and we just want everyone to come out and have a good time.
Her Appeal owner Lakeisha Ouden explains what attendees can expect.
We just want it to be like our sisterhood, and a lot of businesses, women-owned businesses, are not recognized, and we just want to give persons a chance to come together. We just want persons to come out and have a good time, interact, socialize. Like I said, we're going to have pop-up shops, so persons that come are able to come out and support other women-owned businesses. So basically, it's just to push other women-owned businesses, even though they may be startup businesses, get them out there, and this is a way to give back.
All right, sounds great. Now the event will be held this Sunday at Bahamian Bistro between the hours of 12:30 p.m. and 3:30 p.m. You can purchase tickets online or in person by visiting Her Appeal or Bahamian Bistro. 2 large accounting firms are the latest to come on board as silver sponsors to assist local organizing committee in its preparation and the overall running of the 50th Carifta Games. The games, which are set for the Easter holiday weekend, will see athletes from the region compete in top track and field events. Here's PwC Asset Management partner Myra Lundy.
We proudly stand with the local organizing committee for the Carifta Games as a proud sponsor. Our team is committed to supporting the legacy that this organization has achieved in youth development, sports, and culture, and we are thrilled to make a contribution to the continued investment in the future workforce and athletics of the Bahamas.
Ernst & Young country managing partner Michelle Thompson shared similar sentiments.
These games that have produced world record holders, world champions, and Olympians from the Bahamas, as well as other CARICOM countries. A wonderful example being our very own Pauline Davis-Thompson, who is the dame of the 2023 Carifta Games. This is a special historic moment, as this 50-year milestone coincides with the 50th anniversary, the Golden Jubilee, as my colleague has mentioned, of the Bahamas as an independent and sovereign country. Hence, this year's competition has a special meaning in many respects.
The St. Augustine's Big Red Machines steaming their way towards the title in track and field. Meanwhile, our Junior Davis Cup tennis team comes up short against the Dominican Republic. Here's Marcellus Hall with a check on sports.
All right, thanks, Natalia. Welcome to Our Sports, everybody. I'm Marcellus Hall here on this Friday. It's come down to this 3rd day of competition at the BISS Track and Field Championships. St. Augustine's College in the front with QC hot on their heels. Of course, we'll all decide when to give you the details on Monday, but right now, let's give you the update on how things were heading into this final day.
BISS Track and Field Championships heading into the final day of competition today over at the Thomas and Robinson Stadiums. As we go into that final day, St. Augustine's College still with the lead as far as the top 5 standings are concerned. SAC at the closing of day 2 had 691.5 points, with QC 607.7 sitting in second. Temple Christian was third, followed by St. John's and St. Anne's. Again, today is the final day of competition. We'll tell you who holds on to win the championship at the end of the day. Speaking of championship, Junior Davis Cup team into the quarterfinals, and they would unfortunately lose to the Dominican Republic 2-1. Jackson Mataggart lost in the number 2 singles position, 1-6 and 2-6. Gerald Carroll, he won his singles match 6-1 and 6-love. Carroll and Mataggart then lost in doubles 2-6 and 4-6. To the NBA we go, where Buddy Hield and his Indiana Pacers, they were in action going up against their opponents, the San Antonio Spurs. And Buddy Hield doing his part. He finished up with 27 points, 4 assists, and 3 steals. But it would be the Pacers on the short end of the stick against San Antonio. 110-99 ends up being the final score. The Pacers now go to 28-36. They're way down at the bottom of the Eastern Conference.
And that's your check on sports on this Friday. I'm Marcellus Hall. Have a great weekend. Back to you, Italia.
This is Our News. Welcome back. Today is a major milestone for us here at Our News, celebrating 20 years of news on cable channel 12. Tonight, our Christina Dragovich takes a closer look at news over the years.
20 years ago, Newsbreak made its debut on Cable Bahamas Channel 12. It was a new concept. For the first time, a private news entity brought stories of the people to the people on the community channel. But the story of how it came together is not so well known. Newsman Jerome Sawyer was the face of the new 5-minute update in 2003, giving viewers a glimpse of broadcast news through an independent lens.
I thought, this is simple enough. This is probably going to take an hour out of my day, and that's it.
It started in a tiny room in the offices of Island FM on Dowswell Street with a small team of dedicated reporters, some who were stepping in front of the camera for the very first time.
Join the Island FM Cable 12 news team every weeknight at 5:30, 7:30, and 9:30.
The Cable 12 Island FM Newsbreak served as the starting blocks for many careers and even some familiar faces that still appear on TV today. But with the growing demand for news in the country, a change was made and the product transitioned from Newsbreak to NB12 with the Nassau Guardian and then broadcast editor Juan McCartney.
We brought a level of momentum and energy in the coverage of the news. So
that drive and hunger to tell the stories of the community caused even more growth.
For news that's happening in our country, the best place to turn is Our News.
We are trendsetters. We've made all other medias to do things that they never thought they could have done, but we did it first.
Over the years, we have celebrated the nation's highs and mourned the losses, telling the stories that have shaped the Bahamas.
It gives me so much personal pride because I know from whence we have come.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Christina Dragovich.
All right, Christina, what an amazing walk down memory lane, and thank you for that piece. Christina and a few of my colleagues are in studio tonight to officially celebrate our 20th anniversary. An executive producer and host of On the Record, Jerome Sawyer, is also in studio. Now, Jerome, you were the original anchor of Newsbreak 20 years ago when this all started.
You are correct to tell you. You say 20 years, and it seems like only yesterday. Of course, back then I was just the face. There were so many talented people who started. Some are still with us and continue to produce great news. One of them, right next to me, Valdez Ferguson, is our oldest serving employee with the product. Valdez started with us with Newsbreak in the transition to NB12, into Our News, and even live at 7 and 7:30. You've been. How does it feel?
And even weekends.
And even weekends. Of course, we're going to be telling that story. But how does it feel?
It feels great. 20 years has been good. So let's do it for another 20.
Yeah, you got it. Christina, thank you for that wonderful piece down memory lane. A lot of faces came through here this week. It was like, we just talked a lot. It was so nostalgic. We talked a lot about it. What was it like for you, just helping to retell that story for us?
It was really a lot of fun hearing, even the story of the origin of Newsbreak, how you all got started, how the idea came about. And I look forward to sharing, everyone else's stories, our story.
There's a face that's been with this product for so long. She's not on camera as much these days. She's in the background making it all happen. Jasmine, you have been one of the, Jasmine Brown, you are now the assignment editor. I've been one of the longest serving reporters with this product. What is it like for you after all these years to see where we've come?
I feel old. I changed my name in the process. I have grown as a reporter. I've become single woman, mother, wife, and it's been amazing. This has always been a dream job for me, coming from college in the United States, Tampa. I love Tampa, but it's been amazing, and I'm happy that I have this opportunity to even grow in this role.
And some faces up here you recognize, and some you don't. I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge all of us. Valdez Ferguson, who is the technical manager, who has been with us the longest, all the way over there. Taran Knowles. Taran is the news production supervisor. Taran grew up with this product. I remember he first started, he was this skinny little kid. Didn't have a mustache or beard or nothing. Long road. Jasmine, of course, our assignment editor. This lovely lady, Garcia Smith, has been with us also from the beginning. Garcia, a lot of times it's men who are on the technical side, but Garcia plays an integral role. Garcia is the production coordinator and editor. What has it been like for you? You've been our mom in many ways. I just have to say, you keep us in line. What has it been like for you?
Well, for me, I must say that I'm standing here and I'm very proud.
Awesome.
I'm honored to be a part of such a great team. And looking back from when we started to today, it's such a great achievement.
Awesome. And just before we cut the cake, I want to acknowledge Anthony Black. We know him as TJ. TJ started as a cameraman. He is now the senior news editor. You've grown with us. Thank you. This just is a representation of the team. We've got to cut this cake, folks. It's our 20th birthday. Come on. Let's get all in. We've got to cut. It's been a great 20 years, and we want to make sure that we celebrate just right. All right, just right. Here's our cake. Here's to 20 years. And just before we go, here's to another 20 years. Cheers. Cheers.
Cheers. All right, it's so great to hear all of the stories, and I'm so happy to be part of such a great team. When our news comes back from the break, how you can spot the signs of colon cancer.
Plus, coming up in sports for tonight, BISS Championships going right down to the final day of competition to decide a winner. Saks Big Red Machine lists us they're on track to get that championship. We'll give you details on that and so much more coming up in sports tonight.
But first, Our News is celebrating a major milestone today. Our executive producer joins us live in studio on the other side of this break. Welcome back to our news. It sounds like we may get a mix of sun and clouds this weekend. Greg joins us again from the Weather Center with your extended forecast. Greg?
Yeah, thanks, Talia. Of course, we do expect the front boundary to get near sometime on the late weekend into Sunday, Monday time frame. Maybe an isolated shower. The front is actually going to stay just to the north of us. That's this big low pressure system that's been spinning across the central portion of the United States, with the tail end of that front getting in here. But high pressure will stay with us for the rest of the week, and we expect conditions to stay warm. The breeze is expected to fall off, and we're looking for, like I said, maybe a spotty shower or two over the course of the next couple of days. Taking a look at our future forecast, our front boundary by tomorrow afternoon should be across central Florida. A couple of spotty showers moving into the Bahamas, but by Sunday time frame, front is expected to stall across the northern Bahamas with a couple isolated showers expected with that. If you plan on doing any boating for the northwest and central islands tonight, the winds will be out of the southeast to south at 10 to 15 knots, seas running 2 to 4 feet over the ocean. Low tide will be at 11:26 tonight for the southeast Bahamas, southeasterly flow 15 to 20 knots, wave heights running 4 to 7 feet over the open waters. Here's a look now at your national forecast. In your extended forecast, frontal boundary, Sunday to Monday time frame, couple of showers, but by next week we expect temperatures to stay in the 80-degree mark and those low temperatures to remain at the 70-degree mark. That's a look at our weather. Make it a safe evening and have a great weekend.
All right, thanks so much, Greg. And with that, we thank you for joining us for our news tonight. On behalf of the entire team, I'm Natalia Hall. We'll see you tomorrow night. We're about to celebrate our 20th anniversary. Thanks so much for joining us. Have a great evening.